Welcome to the Taylor Made Tasty podcast. I'm Taylor, retired serial quitter turned goal boss coach, speaker, and consultant. I believe a beautiful life starts with a beautiful mindset. Join me as we amplify confidence, resilience, and actionable tools on the road to quit quitting on you and your vision. You are worthy of your goals, so let's go get there. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Taylor Made Tasty, the podcast. As we navigate goal setting and goal crushing tools on this podcast, that entails goals encompassing the entire life wheel. Now, if you are not familiar with the life wheel here at Taylor Made Tasty, they are categories like personal growth, finances, fun and adventure, family and home, relationships, health and fitness, along with either school, career, or business. This episode is attacking an important topic in the career section. I have a special guest today to discuss the mindset of negotiation and how to boost your career negotiation skills. The actionable takeaways I want you to walk away with on this episode are how to start advocating for yourself in small ways, how to get more comfortable asking for bigger things in your career, and how to help others advocate for themselves, which really exercises the muscle of your negotiation. Our guest today is Giselle Galper. As the daughter of an Argentine immigrant who went to college while Giselle was growing up, Giselle saw firsthand how difficult it could be for a Latina woman to advance in her career. While a general counsel and balancing the life of mom and a professional, Giselle started giving talks to groups of women about how to negotiate their pay and navigate through and around bias. Frustrated that there was no way to give people encouragement and additional learning after her talks, Giselle started looking for a career app to solve the problem. Unable to find one, Giselle embarked on the journey of learning how to build a career app to do just this. Now she is the founder of Chea Seed, a career fitness tracker that helps users up their career game with small 1 to 2 minute personalized actions. Hi, Giselle. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here and providing your expertise on such an important aspect of life. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Taylor. I'm excited to be here.
So this topic can be a scary one, being an advocate for yourself and your career. And one of the things that I often coach about is starting small. So in this particular case, how do you start small when it comes to boosting your career?
I love that question. Starting small in boosting your career, one of the best ways to do that is something that most people have not thought of, and that's start in your personal life where the stakes are so low. And one of the things people struggle with the most in their career is asking for things, not just the big things like asking for more pay or promotion, which can be so scary that the data says that both men and women will leave a job to get a higher paying job with the same title at another company just so that they don't have to negotiate their pay. That's crazy. And now it's a lot more women than men that do this, but both genders do it. People are scared to negotiate, to open up that door. So what can you do to start small? This might sound crazy to you, but I was a lawyer for almost 20 years practicing, 17 years as a general counsel. And a lot of the time, as a general counsel without a big staff, you have to coach people how to negotiate themselves at work. And what works really well is to have people start negotiating in their personal lives for things that are a little bit out of the box, not with their partners necessarily, but that could happen next. The first step is just to go to a store that you usually go to. Most of us are doing more online shopping now. So you got to think, okay, where would I go to the store? And ask for a discount that is past or is coming. Like, I know you have a spring sale, 25% off, 40% off. Can I get a discount on this? Or even if there's no discount, I learned this kind of early on as a lawyer, where I got my first real bonus and I wanted a treat for myself, but my bonus wasn't that big and I wasn't that big a spender. And I went into a well-known department store to the jewelry counter and I asked for a 50% discount. Now, I didn't get 50%, but I think I got 35%. And it was a huge wake-up call to me because I was shaking in my boots and I was a lawyer. Mm-hmm. So these small things where we can go in and ask, or we can ask for extra services, we can ask to try an appetizer. They seem crazy and somewhat rude, but it's getting comfortable. The big piece is not talking after the ask, saying, can I get a 25% discount? And then not explaining, oh, I know it's unusual. Oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Oh, I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. None of that. Make the ask and practice the uncomfortable silence of the ask. It's uncomfortable. We don't like silence. And when you can extend that till the person looks at you and they might say, oh, I can't do that. And you can say, oh, could you ask your manager? Is there anyone else you could ask? Then you wait for the uncomfortable silence. Now, the answer might be no, but these pauses are the exact same pauses we have at work. And at work, we don't need to start with big asks. We can just start with these small asks. And as we do that, we get more and more comfortable. We see that there's no failure because there was failure when we started. Mm-hmm. Right? The answer was no.
Yes, we already have the no, right? You already have the no. If you're asking for a free appetizer or a discount, and I love the concept of starting small in this way. But the other important piece of that is getting to know yourself in how your body is going to react when you're put in those situations, right?
Absolutely.
Like, your palms get sweaty. Does your breath get short? Do you feel tingles in your body as you're becoming an advocate for yourself?
In the app that we're building, in the scripts, we talk about getting yourself ready to negotiate, bringing oxygen to your brain so your frontal lobe is calm, and practicing doing that. So usually when people are doing the personal asks, I don't advise them to do this because I actually want them to get that uncomfortable level and see how they manage it. But once it gets up to higher stakes in the workplace, we encourage deep belly breathing, going for a walk, squats, whatever you can do to bring that power to yourself. Now, some people, even though it's been a little bit discredited in the research, some people say, like, do the superwoman pose, with your arms out and your legs wide. But I think even though the research doesn't back up that that's going to make you more powerful, anything that you do to get to your calm space. I do 10 deep belly breaths when I know I'm going to be anxious or something triggers me in life. And I know it works for me because I've practiced it. So I like for people to go through that negative experience in their personal practice, but then when they're in the more higher stakes place, have practiced these skills. Don't just say, oh, I'll do the belly breaths. I'll do the squats. Try it out and see how it works for you. And it's a great practice anyways, depending on the job you have, to do regular calming exercises through the day.
Very true. Very true. So along that same line, it's uncomfortable for most people to vocalize their wants, their goals, their dreams. And you talk about this idea of no one starts comfortable. And I love that any concept that helps us not feel alone, right? Mm-hmm. And knowing that nobody starts comfortable. Like, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Like, even lawyers, and the data is more rich on women lawyers, who negotiate for their jobs don't feel comfortable necessarily negotiating for themselves. It's always harder to do things for ourselves than it is for someone else. And culturally, women more than men, but men of many cultures too, and particularly if you're underrepresented, you're taught to just toe the line, follow the rules, check off the rubric. So by asking, we're not necessarily following the rubric. But the thing is, especially at work, we have to make our own rubric. We're responsible. I call it the roadmap of success. We're responsible for mapping that out, because unlike in school where we get all our performative outcome knowledge. So by that I mean, we spend kindergarten, possibly through graduate school, depending who we are, or taking Coursera classes or Udemy, whatever we do, there is a grade. There is a rating. Mm-hmm. But at work, the ratings really have to come more from within. Even if you have a performance review, it's not every piece of work you do you get this one paragraph of feedback on it. And so we need to kind of step back, and I like for people, this is a little bit outside of what we're talking about for starting small, but to reflect on what they've done. So like athletes. Mm-hmm. Athletes, there are two things athletes do. One is they visualize their process to success. It's not just that they visualize future success they haven't had. The research says, and I really like this one guy, Nir et al., he talks about lots of things like this, but he points to the research that says it's the process. The thinking about our golf swing, thinking about how we're going to get dressed for the meeting, thinking about how we're going to practice what we're going to say, how we're going to make our point. These are the small things that we do. And yes, athletes also visualize actual wins. Mm-hmm. So another small thing that you can do is write down those wins. Keep track of those accomplishments, favorite them. And then when you're going into that thing that makes you nervous, reflect on those for a minute. Give yourself that time to envelop yourself in your small wins. They don't have to be these huge milestone achievements. It's the small things that lift us up and build us and give us our reserve and resolve. And so all these things together help us take away that stress.
Yes. We love an actionable, tangible tool here at Tailor Made Tasty. So I love you sort of flipped the script a little bit. So I do talk about the visualizing that big win, as you said, right? So they, as an athlete, they're visualizing their championship game. And so I teach it in the same concept of, let's say I'm on stage somewhere. I've been there 100 times already because I've seen myself doing the speech, giving the keynote, whatever it is. I've seen that happen so many times in my visualization, but those little things along the way are also wins. So paying attention to visualizing those little steps along the way. And that's really where you start to get, push through the uncomfortable, right?
Exactly. And really all we can control is our process. We may have given an amazing speech. We may be totally prepared, but something's off. It doesn't go right. It's the audience doesn't get it. You had a mental moment, but if you prepared, and you focused on your process, you can have that confidence to get through. And that's why I'd like people to track not just their big milestone moments, but all these little things that they do. And plus, when you're talking about career and life, these become stories. Most of our stories aren't the big thing that happened. It's kind of that set of small things that repeated themselves that had a theme that we tell. And so I really like stories. As a lawyer, you realize that stories don't only win cases, they help you in mediation. They help you explain a complicated topic. And stories There's a woman at Stanford named Jennifer Acker, and she talks about the power of the story and talks about like Coca-Cola commercials and how they make you feel. But she says just adding in a little bit of data into our stories. So if we can have a story with some rich background, but then we can throw in some data, that's the most powerful story. So that's why I like those small things.
Yes, I love that. That is powerful. So now there's a variety of things that we can be negotiating when it comes to our career, right? Can you give us some examples as we're starting small and getting more comfortable? What would be some examples of something that's maybe a lower stake ask?
It depends where you're coming from, but the very lowest stake ask has zero stake. And these are things that some people are uncomfortable doing. Can we move the meeting time? I need to leave early. Maybe you have no reason to leave early, so it's no problem. It's not high stakes. Putting things out there like maybe you want to take a training class, but it's no big deal. Asking for that training class. Don't ask for the thing that gets you to the next rung of the ladder as your first ask. It's these small things. We also know that when you're talking about advancement, earning more opportunity, there are small opportunities and big opportunities. So the opportunity to shadow someone in a different department is a super easy ask that can be frightening for people earlier in their careers, but it can be so awesome. You learn a lot. You might be able to get a mentor. You see how things work, but there are zero stakes. If you don't get it, who cares? Now that's totally different than if you know you want to be the assistant controller, and the person who gets the assistant controller job always gets invited to the sales conference. If your first ask is for the sales conference and you're a nervous person, try to get some asks in there first of these little things. People talk about even the skills of asking to start a meeting, as opposed to saying, I think it's time to start the meeting. Please, let's start the meeting, to come in more strongly and say, we're starting the meeting. Some things that are a little bit scary, they don't even feel like asks, like changing the ask into a command, shifting the rhetoric, asking to sit at a different chair. These can be very uncomfortable for people who generally follow the rules and do as they're told. And then you can move up, ask for training dollars, ask for the shadowing, ask to attend meetings you're not invited to, especially, and ask for events, industry events, money to go to those events, because these are things that lift up our careers. We know that it's not actually the deep network of people who know your work really well that lift you up in your career and give you opportunity. It's actually a math game. The more people who know just a little bit about your experience and your, what I call aspiration, your goal, or what you want to know next, the more opportunities that will flow to you. And at first that seems crazy, but think about it. If you don't tell 50 people that you want to be a product manager, and you really want to be a product manager, you're an assistant product manager, maybe they think you're pretty happy, or maybe they think you want to be a program manager, or maybe they think you're planning on taking a sabbatical and joining the Great Resignation. You don't really know. You're just guessing. So if you tell people, that's kind of an ask too. You're not asking. Just putting out there to the world is a kind of career ask that's so valuable to people. It's putting out there, oh, I'd really like to go to the sales conference. I've been working on these skills and think it'd be great for me to go to the sales conference. That's not an ask, but it is an ask. And that's my favorite type of small ask that people can do.
I love that. So I have a few questions. Is there such thing as too many asks? Let's say in these low stake forms, mm-hmm. right? As you're building that muscle, is there a chance that you could be overusing it, let's say?
Maybe. First of all, we're not always going to ask from the same person. So you want to kind of spread it around. See how different people respond and see how you manage that. You're not always asking your manager, that's for sure. And we know that managers are frustrated. There's some research on this, and a lot of anecdotal evidence that managers are frustrated with Gen Z and kind of younger millennials in terms of asking for feedback, asking for this. Oh, I want the promotion. But these smaller asks that paint you as a career owner, doing them once a month, is not unreasonable to say, I'm really looking forward to be a product manager. And I'm looking online at the leadership and development classes and these. Which of these do you recommend I do and would you fund? Is very different than saying, how can I get advanced to product manager? Or one of the questions that I really like that I heard at a conference from someone who was an interview expert is, it has this formula. If in the next 6 months, fill in the date, you feel is very important. If in the next 6 months you feel I'm ready for advancement, I've done an amazing job, again, fill in the blank, I'm ready to be a product manager, what will I have accomplished? So that's an amazing kind of ask because it really gets to the EQ of the listener about visualizing you as successful. So I like those asks a lot, where you're getting people to visualize you as successful. I don't like the asks as much that are, what am I not doing? It's okay to ask for feedback, but it's very important to ask in a positive way. So there can be too many asks. You don't want to be asking every week, but you want to try it out on different people in your organization. And if you have a talent department or HR department, that's a great place to go to ask some of these questions. If you're developing your network at work, which is strongly encouraged because 85% of jobs come through networking. Opportunity comes from networking. So spending 15 minutes with people in other departments and asking these questions for opportunities, you're just asking them one question. So if you go to 20 people a month, which would be incredible, but crazy, if you go to 20 people a month and ask a question, it's not too much. So you've got to spread it around like everything else. That was smart. We don't want to pepper our boss so that they're going crazy.
Absolutely. Now, I think when it comes to advocating and asking, there's almost this mental requirement that we need to tack on where we're showing value. Like, this is why I'm asking. I have to sort of prove my worth of even asking the question to begin with, whatever it is, low or high stake, right? Do you think that that's required to sort of always be explaining or proving ourselves prior to asking?
Well, it obviously depends on the low or high stake ask. If it's the low stake ask, the one sentence, so I view the pitch as being a 2-sentence phrase. My experience plus what I need. I've been taking these classes. I'd love to be in a paid certificate program. That's it.
Yeah.
Experience plus what I need. So it doesn't require this long 3-sentence paragraph that I've curated. But now if you're going in to ask for a promotion and it's the first time you're talking to your boss, but you're actually asking for it, you're not saying, if in 1 year I'm ready for promotion, what do you feel I will have accomplished in that year? Mm-hmm. Now, if you're asking that question, you don't have to come in with anything.
Sure.
If you're super lucky, they'll say, I think you'll be ready sooner. Or they might say, I think it'll take you 3 years and here's what you need to do. But you're going to get an answer. But if you're coming in and saying, I'm applying for that opportunity in your department, all of these different things, you absolutely want to have, I call them your themes, these 3 big themes that you've put together from your list of accomplishments. So you're not just pointing out one thing or another, but you've thought it through and you have themes. And if you only have 2 themes or 1 theme, that's fine. But have some idea that, again, it's the EQ, paints you as successful, as a leader, as someone who gets things done, whatever, is really important in your organization. Every organization is different. So you can't say, oh, it's always these. But by picking out that theme, you're doing the work for your manager. And also kind of elevating what you've done. So you might think, I hear a lot of young people in particular say, oh, well, I only do this. And I just do it over and over. I do this analysis over and over. Well, how many times have you done it? How many times have you done it successfully? When have you gotten positive feedback? Pulling those stories together. Like 10 out of 15 times I got, people telling me I did amazing work on the presentation for the sales team. That's the sort of thing your boss needs to hear. Now, each one, they might not need to hear that. But that collection, that theme, you definitely want to come forward with that. And then the thing you want to do is not talk too much. Just explain the theme. Okay, just say it. Now, if they want more detail, provide that after. So don't be tempted to go into a 3-paragraph essay.
Yes.
Just one highlight. I call it like a highlight reel. Shorter than an Insta reel. But a highlight reel, again, like an athlete, of these things. And then the other place you want to be careful of talking too much or talking at all is if you're coming in for more pay, where it's not set and you kind of have an idea in mind, don't justify it right there. Say the end market, high end of market for this job, which I'm qualified for, is $80K. And then stop. Don't explain how you got to $80K. Don't do the math for them. If they want to know, they will ask you, and you can always provide it after. But you want to keep your audience focused on your goal. And that's going to distract from your goal. You don't want too much justification in there.
Yes. So what I'm hearing is the ask should really match the conversation that you're having. So if it's a low stake ask, there's not a lot of meat that needs to be provided. Whereas when you're going into these higher stake asks, then you would want to provide a little bit more value or just your accolades of what you've done to even have the opportunity to sit and ask for that ask, right?
Absolutely. And then the trick is, to provide the high level of detail even there, and then let the listener explore the detail in their questions. If they have questions or they don't buy it, they'll ask you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so once we start to build our confidence, we get comfortable with the low stake asks and just being quiet and being okay with the pause and conversation, all of that, and our confidence builds, and we want to up the stakes. What are some higher stake asks? I mean, we talked about a little bit about negotiating salary or maybe a promotion, but what's a little bit more that would go into that as far as like tools that people can use?
Well, one of the most important tools is understanding that very rarely will you get an unconditional yes to a high stakes ask. That setting your expectation to be optimistic, we know that if you're optimistic and you're confident and calm, outcomes will be better. So that's a very big toolkit. So really working on that calmness and the confidence, practicing, doing selfie videos, sending them to someone else, that is precious. You don't have to practice for hours, but write a script, get it down, use the script, and practice it. Send it out to a few people for feedback. We all send texts. It's really easy. Then be ready for no. And no is often couched in yes. Or it's couched in, oh, we don't do it that way. Or that can happen in 6 months. Or, oh, I'd love to do that for you, but I don't have it in the budget. So I call this the pushback, kind of the resilience part of the exercise. Again, where underrepresented people tend to back off more and accept the no. It's very important to be positive and pleasant and and then reopen the conversation and have practiced some language that works for you to do this, to say, oh, you've made my job so much harder. So humor is a tool of mine. You've made my job so much harder. I so much want the payment for that certificate program or the opportunity to go to that meeting. Can we talk about it next week, right? Leaving that door open for discussion, or saying, okay, I get that. What else can we do to get me closer to that sooner? What could happen to change that? Or let's say they just say, look, we just don't give bonuses until July 31st. That's just how it works, Taylor. Sorry. And you're sitting there thinking, wow, I just closed these huge deals. And you could say, could I get a written commitment that I will get that? And you're not questioning them. But I just spoke to someone last night, and she's in a job where she's gotten the promotion, but now she's doing 2 jobs. And so how does she lock them down to not be doing 2 jobs? Because she's making a little bit more money, but she's exhausted.
Yeah.
And so having that conversation, putting a box around the conversation, it won't just happen in one pushback. I like for people to try at least 3 times before they sit back and say, okay, so over 6 weeks, I tried 3 times and my boss is not moving. What does that tell me? Am I not getting a promotion here ever? Is there a performance issue that I'm not getting? Because there can be performance issues. What is happening here? Now, there are some bosses that are just not promoters. They don't give big raises. They don't give big bonuses. And by networking, you can also sort that out. If you're hitting a wall in this pushback, though it's getting hard, start talking to people who used to work for your manager, who's left the department, and find out how people navigated advancement. Did they make a lateral move? I recently heard a talk that I loved about zigzagging in career. So sometimes you love your company, they've got a great benefit plan, maybe you're not remote, it's close to your house, but whatever it is, you love their mission, but your boss isn't a promoter. They don't pay more. They're not sending you to training. You're really frustrated. Your friend Janice is getting it all. Look around in the organization, because maybe it's a lateral move, but it's a shift to an advancing boss, or you're gaining a new skill set. So do you want to stay where you are, build your exact same skill set at that pay, or move over at that level and build a skill set that's preparing you for something else? Or if you've been tracking what you like to do and you know you want more of that, you're actually going for it. So I think the pushback and hearing the messaging on that, really listening to it, internalizing it, is so important, because it's work. We don't always get what we want in these asks. It's not what we get is lessons and learning and this success roadmap. But that success roadmap might not be in this job, in this department, or right now. And we then get to make a decision because we got the information. See, we win anyways. That's what I love about asking. Even if you don't get the outcome you wanted, you get information that's actionable. And you get to choose and be the author of your own career story.
Yes, I love the zigzag. That is so applicable to many different aspects of life, where you gotta shift over here to eventually get to the peak. But sometimes it looks like a wild roller coaster instead of this like gradual rise,
I love that. Yeah, the roller coaster. And it might feel like you're going down too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or you might choose, there's a big school of thought, especially for women, like, do you want to be on the up ramp or the down ramp in your career? Maybe you want to be stepping back, but you want to keep working. So know that. Own that.
Sure.
What kind of job? Can you be a solo contributor instead of a manager? What can you do to make it work for where you are in your life right now? It's not just binary. I'm working or I'm not working. There are a lot of in-betweens if we're proactive.
Definitely. Or a down ramp might come into play if you want to start in a new industry and you have
Exactly.
to, go back to square one as it is to learn your new industry or the new position or whatever that is.
Absolutely. You might have to take your skill set somewhere else where you're a little bit of a beginner again, and that's totally okay. Because if there's something that we like that gives us flow, this feeling of satisfaction, we are going to ultimately advance. And the worst thing that can happen in a job is this feeling of stuck, and sadness. Especially now, I think we see it more than ever with the Great Resignation. But that's been around forever. I think Seth Godin had that a talk in a dip or in a slump for a while. Like, how do you get out of that? Maybe you have to go to another industry or to a company you're really passionate about what they do in a lower role. But it's totally fine because you're charting out this course.
Absolutely. And you may not even feel that pull or empowerment to have the ask in your current position because you don't care, right? Where then
Exactly.
if you are to go, on that downhill or, to a different position, be a beginner again, square one, then you'll feel that fire again to have those low stake asks and as you move up, right, the bigger ones.
Absolutely. And that's so important. So you have to know this is something we haven't talked about, but knowing what your motivation is to get to your goals. And literally, like in our app, it's in the app on the homepage at the top, you press your plan and there's your motivation. But put it on a sticky on your computer if you're not using an app. Put it on your notepads, wherever it is. Know what's driving you and then find a way to pursue this. We call it satisfaction tracking. Write down what you do and how you feel about it. I learned this from the book Creative Confidence many years ago by the Kelly brothers, and I think that's the big theme in design your life thinking. But how do you feel about it? Because when there's work that you feel good about, that gives you the power to make your ask. When you're at that job where you're the beginner or you're excited about the company, you're excited about the work, that is your fuel. It's hard to have the fuel when you're numb and you don't feel like doing it. You got to find your fuel to ask.
Yes, love, love, love that. So you mentioned a little bit earlier that sometimes it is a bit easier for us to ask for things for other people as opposed to being the greatest advocate for ourselves. So how can people exercise that advocate negotiation muscle or ask muscle for others?
Oh, well, first of all, networking is hard for a lot of people, and buddy networking is really awesome. So if you and a friend go to an event, which will start happening more and more, it's a little hard now. The networking events are usually one-on-one if they're online, where you talk up your buddy and what they want, and then they do the same for you. That is the best trade ever. First of all, it's more credible. Having someone else say something about you and what you should get is like a billboard. Third-party endorsements are the bomb. And so it's really helpful for you if someone speaks up about you and if you speak up about them. But also, and there's a lot of talk now about allyship. I think it's about having teams everywhere. When I was a general counsel, I realized I had to pre-sell ideas before the meeting. I had to have people who believed in what I was doing, and those people helped me. They helped sell my ideas. They jumped in for me to pitch the idea or support the idea, and that is asking for someone else. Putting yourself out there, asking for someone else is a way to build a team. So if you see someone who has a good idea and it's not being heard, you're actually doing yourself a favor by helping them. First of all, you're a proponent of a great idea. So nothing wrong with that. You're associated with the great idea. But when you help other people by putting their idea forward, oh, Taylor was saying, breaking in the room for Taylor, getting the words in for Taylor. Or Women in particular are much more likely to apply for jobs when it's been recommended to them. So saying to your colleague's boss, gosh, I think Jennifer is ready. Jennifer's going to be an amazing, controller, CFO, regional sales manager. Wow. You know how much influence that has on your boss when you say that for Jennifer? Mm-hmm. So you don't have to specifically say, oh, I think you should promote Jennifer. But putting that idea is kind of one of these out to the world asks where you're asking for someone else. Now, of course, you can also be a supporter to someone. Often you have to be further up in your career. And supporters have enough power to say, Jennifer should be in the interview queue for that job. And when you get to that level in your career, looking for people and doing that for people who might be passed over otherwise is so important. It is hard to get supporters in life, but when you have a champion in your industry, in your company, in another division, who's putting you at the table and getting you to meetings, it's so valuable. So as you rise, doing that for other people is incredibly important. It's one of the biggest things that you could do. And it again, it's not an ask, it's I think they should be there because you're at that level.
Absolutely, yes. Almost giving back with your words. But again, you're advocating and exercising that muscle of being able to articulate why this person is a good fit or why they should be promoted or why, which is all about, us getting more comfortable with that for ourselves. Why we want it, why we deserve it, why we can see ourselves adding value in that position. It's all about what you're going to bring to it. So being able to do that for somebody else, I think, is so powerful.
It is. And it's sustaining as humans.
Yes, definitely. That empowerment for each other. Well, this has been so powerful for everyone that's going to listen, and a million gems that happen throughout this. But Giselle, I want to know how users can connect with you and what's the latest and greatest that's happening in your business and with the app.
Oh, well, I'm so excited about the app. The app started out as an idea a few years ago, and it's grown into a working app in Google Play and the App Store. And the name of our product, Chea Seed, the idea is that it's like the chia seed. It's these small actions, the food that you eat. It's a superfood, and it stands for Career Helping Expert App. And the idea is that we encourage micro activities, and we have this micro learning, which is interactive. So you're collecting this information about yourself, and we're encouraging you to do this. The things we've talked about today, the backup for your ask, your accomplishments, your shout outs, your satisfaction that helps you get to your career path, building your career plan. And then we have programs for how to ask for different things or how to navigate when you're starting in a job. And I'm so excited about those. And then our next big theme that we'll be working on is the ability to share this, not just one thing at a time, but the idea of sharing your accomplishment and shout out record with a mentor or a friend who can help you craft your story. Because what we do know is not only is it easier for someone to ask for you, but when a friend or colleague or mentor helps you tell your story, it's a more powerful story because we tend to minimize what we do. So I love the idea of making what people are doing in the app shareable. And we've been going out to college campuses, to women in business clubs. We're going to do some trials with them. Employee resource groups at companies and some mentorship programs. So I'm very excited to try this with individuals and groups and just spread the word on the power of what we call career fitness tracking, tracking what you do and then using this to enable these asks and self-advocacy and putting yourself out there for your career.
Yes, and I think us being able to see the data, as you say, with these micro milestones that are happening, being able to see that data gives that confidence, gives that empowerment to make the ask.
Yes, absolutely. And I should say that the best way to find us is we have a website. It's Chea Seed with an E, Chea Seed.com. And then we're an Insta at Chea Seed App. And you can always DM me directly if you have questions. I love talking about this and just really excited to help people get to the next level in their careers in a way that feels authentic and easy to them.
Yes. Thank you so much, Giselle. We are so grateful for you coming on, and we hope to talk to you in the future as well.
I love that.
Thank you. All right, y'all. It's time for the quote of the episode, and this week's quote is from Akirak Brost. The quote is, "Don't just seek out help when you are suffering. Every day is a good day to learn, grow, and help yourself. Every day is a good day to invest in bettering the quality of your life." So take that into your week, your month, maybe even your year, and feel empowered to advocate for yourself on the good and bad days. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for being in my community. I'm so glad you showed up today, and let's go get there. Look at you, crushing it. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Tailor Made Tasty podcast. My hope is you always leave with a takeaway to implement in your own goal-crushing journey. I would love if you could take a moment to leave a review. And if you're looking for a community of goal boss badasses just like you, be sure to check out tailormadetasty.com/membership.